Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode number 35. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. If you're looking for more information about the podcast, past guests, or want to catch up on previous episodes, or just want to drop me a line, it's all at the website, desertladydiaries.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries and on Twitter as Desert Lady Diary. This week, Marilyn Fernald, who came to the Mojave in 1948 at the age of 14, talks about how women grew the Morongo Basin, and she's the perfect example of how some of those women did that. Welcome back to Desert Lady Diaries. My guest today is Marilyn Fernald, who moved to the desert with her family in 1948. Her younger sister was very sick, and her parents had heard about the desert's dry air giving relief to those who suffered from lung problems. As a freshman, she enrolled in the very small 29 Palms High School and graduated from Banning High School. She married, had 3 children, and joined the workforce in the early 60s. These days, she's turned her energy to oil painting, which she started when she was about 12. She loves painting the desert's beauty. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
1948. Mm-hmm. What was this place like? And you were mostly in 29 Palms, right?
No, I started in Yucca Valley.
Oh, really?
My folks came across country in a trailer that now would be just unreal. It was pretty modern then.
Right.
And we found a trailer park, not very big, in Yucca Valley. And I rode a bus from Yucca to 29 Palms to high school and back every day. And then my dad got work out east of town, and so they moved to 29, and we moved into the trailer park at Smith's Ranch.
Oh, wow.
And so then my next 2 years were high school and living in the small trailer park of Smith's Ranch, which was pretty historic. It was kind of like the beginning of my life. I thought at first they brought me to the end of the world. I soon discovered that I belonged.
Very nice.
And so that's how it all began.
Yeah. What was that bus ride like from Yucca Valley to 29 for high school? How long did that take usually?
Well, since he stopped all along the way and picked up people in Joshua Tree and all the stops along the way, I don't have a clue. It was an hour or two.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty. What was Highway 60? Did they take Highway 62 or did they take? And what was that like then? Was it?
It was 2 lanes.
2 lanes.
It was paved, but it was just 2 lanes.
Just 2 lanes.
And the bus itself was probably seat 20 maybe. Mm-hmm. It was small.
Right. When you moved, you were how old when you moved here?
14.
14. Oh, okay. How was that like leaving your school that you were in before and then coming here to a new place? I mean, where did you move from?
My folks moved around a whole lot, and the latest one that brought us here, we were in Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
And then he bought the trailer there, and we moved cross country, stopping in a lot of places that we thought might be healthy for my sister, and ended up on the coast and then started backwards into 29 Palms. And I forgot what you said. What'd you ask?
What it was like leaving your school in Wichita and then coming here.
Well, since I had been in at least one school per year since I'd started kindergarten, I didn't have any feelings or
you were
history
kind of
with any school any place.
You were just like used to moving to a new place and making new friends and realizing that it might change.
Well, when you start your life and you're in its depression times and the folks have to go where there's work.
Right.
And then right after that you go into the Second World War, and then you live through that and you move to wherever that takes you, and then got a sick sister, so it continues to move.
Wow. Where are you in the birth order of 6 sisters?
Sick, not 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 6.
I'm the oldest, and my sister is 9 years younger than I.
Okay,
so
all
it's
right.
Like 2 only kids.
Right, okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And how is she now?
She's fine.
Great.
She had a healthy life here in the desert and moved away about 10 or 12, 15 years ago, something like that. Healthy, and she raised her family here. And
excellent. Then it worked.
And it worked.
Yeah, that's amazing. Coming here from Wichita, Kansas, and the terrain is definitely different. How did that feel when you got here?
I think at 14 you don't really think much about the terrain. I loved to go up in the park. Then we called it the National Monument. And I was like a gazelle when I got up there. I just loved it. And I still do.
It's beautiful. Do you get in often? Do you go often now?
No, not so often. But I sure like taking pictures when I'm up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Do you use those in your painting?
I do.
You do? Okay, excellent. So once you graduated high school, you said you got married.
I did. I married a local boy.
Okay.
Had 3 kids.
And then you went into the workforce.
Into the workforce.
And how was that for you?
I guess like it would be for anybody, a young mother with lots to do at home and still wanting to be. I think what I said as I presented this to my husband, I'm going to go to work, I need my own Social Security, I think is what I said to him.
Smart lady. Yeah.
And food service was terrible. I didn't like that at all. We owned a Texaco service station for a little while, so I learned bookkeeping, and so then I hired myself out as a bookkeeper at the jewelry store and discovered that I really liked the back room and the tools and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
And so I watched what was going on, and I learned, and I became a jeweler.
That's amazing. Wow. So what do you think it was about working with that attracted you to it?
Oh, well, my dad wanted boys.
I think most men do.
And my dad was a tool and die maker. So I kind of come by handling tools. I kind of come by that naturally. I was taught from a young age about tools. And so it wasn't unheard of for me anyway to take on tools and call them friends and do with them. And at that point in time when I was learning the jewelry business and the bench, there weren't many women doing that. I was in a man's world.
Sure.
And
what was that like?
Well, I didn't have really much time to think about it.
You're busy just learning.
So, and eventually I worked for other jewelry stores other than 29 Palms, and eventually I got brave enough to start my own little business. And it grew nicely, and I stayed with it for a while, and then I got very tired.
Yeah, running your own business will do that. Yeah. Are you wearing any of the pieces that you've made?
No.
No? Do you still have some of them?
My biggest like was to take on a piece of jewelry that was antique and turn it into something that was wearable and usable, that had been stuck away in a drawer for a long time. That was my most favorite thing to do. And so I put things together, and I did pieces and parts more than just starting from scratch and pouring hot metal into a form. I did it this other way.
Did you go out and look for those pieces, or did people bring them?
People brought them to me. Here I've got this brooch that belonged to my grandmother, and I really would like to have it as a pendant or a ring or something. And
nice.
That was my fun things to do. The rest of it was very tedious, just repairing.
Well, that's interesting, though, that you came from a bookkeeping background, let's say, because that's how you started. Right, exactly. But there's so many people that are creative and artistic, but they don't have the capability of running the business side of the business. And it sounds like for you, that came kind of naturally because you had that aptitude to learn to do a bookkeeping job, and then you also had the ability to create this jewelry.
Never thought of it.
No?
Out here, and to make a living and to earn a paycheck, you did whatever you had to do.
Do you think that that's changed much here today?
I don't know. I don't know how the young people are doing it.
I think it's pretty much, I've interviewed some other women that are about my age and maybe a little younger, and they feel like it's pretty, DIY. You're looking to do it yourself and find ways to be creative about finding work. But we have a great tourist traffic, so that supports some things for people to do, but it is, There's no factories, there's no big office buildings or anything like that. So
you sometimes have to just be creative.
Mm-hmm.
I started out here when there was a house to be built. We built a house, and there was a well to drill. We drilled a well, and when there was, we just did it because we had to.
Right.
And we didn't have any particular choices, and we didn't give it much thought. We did what we had to do, and you made a living any way you could. And if you had to have 3 jobs at 3 completely different things, that's what you did. And that's how you survived out here. And women did, in fact, grow this valley because there were so many men coming out of the First World War that had lung disease, and the women came with their men, and the women did the building of houses, and the women did the starting of businesses, and did their children, and started the school, and all these things. For being out here, this just was the way of life.
Right.
And nobody thought a whole lot about it.
No, you just did it.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that it takes a certain aptitude and a certain determinedness to survive in that kind of environment? Did you see, when you were here, since 1948, did you see like people come and go because it just wasn't for them? Or did you find most of the people that came just kind of dug in and stuck it out?
Well, I'll have to go back to the school years. Everybody who went to school says, can't wait to get out of here. Got to go to college, got to get into a big city, got to do this, got to do that. But a lot of them came back at some point in time. It grows on you.
It does. It didn't take me very long at all to grow on me. It's still growing because I'm just learning new things about the desert all the time and meeting people like you who have paved the way here in the desert for women. So tell me about the rehab of historic adobe houses.
I've just done one historic house, and that was in 29 Palms. It was called the Post Adobe. It had been a rental for a very long time, and I was with a gentleman who was also enamored by the adobe buildings, and so we decided to buy it together. I would do the work and he'd put up the money, which is the way it went. And I spent a couple of years rehabbing that old adobe, and it turned out really nice.
And how did you learn how to do that?
It goes back to doing things, just you had something to do, you did it. I didn't have any specific knowledge. I didn't go to school for any of this. It just, I did it.
Just, you saw what, like, how did you say, well, I need these materials, and where did you get them?
Oh, well, Ace Hardware had a lot of the stuff I needed. I could always call on other people who had more knowledge than I to do a repair on Adobe and things of that sort. And I probably didn't do it all right, but I did it.
But you did it. Well, the way I hear you speaking about how everybody just did what they had to do and pulled together, I recently finished Helen Bagley's book, and that gave me a pretty clear picture of that scenario. I mean, they moved here and they had to build their house, they had to dig a well, they had to dig for the gas station that they put in, the roads. What was that like to live in a place where everybody a community where everybody came together, knew what had to be done or decided on what was going to be done? Do you have any thoughts on that, how that was?
I was young when we first came here, so I did not necessarily see the community coming together as a whole. I was in school, and that was my main thing. I do know that the Smith's Ranch area was an area, and those people kind of did together. The Plaza people and the Bagleys, they had their group of people, and they worked together. And then you had the people at Four Corners, and they had their businesses, and they did their thing. And Smoke Tree. So we had all these factions, so that I assume they all came together for certain things, but in a lot of respects they were kind of little bitty communities within something called 29 Palms.
Right.
And that was somewhat because the roads were bad. You didn't go very far from home. So, yeah, we were a community that was one and yet not. I don't know how else to explain it.
like New York City, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Staten Island.
Probably started the same way.
Right, exactly. That's cool. You also said that you did some tract houses.
Oh, yeah. Back when I was first married, and my mother and father also needed work, Dad decided that he had enough knowledge to build these little tract houses out in the desert. And so my husband also needed work, so they planned to go out and build houses, build those little 5-acre tracts. Mm-hmm. We built with cement block and Celtec roof, and very simple and very small. And we did a number of them. Mm-hmm. And when they'd get behind or needed help, then I would go help. And that's how I came to lay a few block and
right.
be the gopher and all that good stuff.
That's really cool. So do you still have any of those houses today, or did you sold?
No, they were built for people who came to us and said, please build us a house.
Oh, so when they came out to get their 5 acres as part of, say, the Jackrabbit homesteading,
right,
they came to you to actually build the structure.
Right.
And if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, you needed at least a 10 by 12 on the 5 acres. At minimum, it needed...
I think it was something like that. I've kind of forgotten what that small footage was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't very big.
No. So were any of those in Yucca Valley? I know there's a number in Joshua Tree, like up on the mesa, but there's many more out in 29 Palms and Wonder Valley.
East of town was where a lot of them, most of them seemed to be. We did do some building across the road from the college, where the college is now. Back up in those hills, we did quite a bit of work for a family and friends up in that area. Once we got kind of connected, why we had quite a few of them.
See, that's interesting, because my thought, in just the small amount of information I know about the Jackrabbit homesteading, is that people would come out and they would build their own.
Right.
But now I'm hearing a totally different story, which is that they would come out and get their 5 acres, but they would hire someone locally to build for them.
It just depended on how much money they had to put into a piece of property.
Because I'm sure some people did build their own.
Right. A lot of people did.
I had no idea. So you've had some experience as a storekeeper.
Yeah. Just a little.
And an entrepreneur. What was it about that? Was that, again, just doing what you needed to do to survive out here, or do you kind of like that whole idea of having your own business?
I think that I really would rather work for myself than somebody else.
I understand that. How did it transition from the food service, and then it was the gas station and the jewelry store? Did you own the stores that you ran, the sporting goods store? And
there's a building in Smoke Tree that's a 2-story building. It was the first 2-story building in that area, and it was very run down and beat up and needed a lot of work. And my husband and I bought the building. We rehabbed it, lived upstairs, and I put the sporting goods store downstairs because the sporting goods store that we had in town was going out of business. Those people were retiring. So we bought what was left of their merchandise and put it in a new place, and I became the store owner.
Once again.
It was not anything planned. It just happened.
So tell me about, because I drive through 29 Palms now, and I drive through that little area where the Echadas is the restaurant that used to be a bank. Right. And then across the street there's Bistro 29, and there's a Thai restaurant and a couple of others. What was that like in, say, the 60s?
We had a full little town with all the shops that you could want. We had dress shops and shoe shop and TV store and everything you could want we had in our town. We did not have to leave to have all the supplies we need, unless you needed maybe a new refrigerator or something like that. Or there might have been some building supplies you had to go out of town for. But at that point in time, we were a totally self-sufficient little town. And then things changed. Big box stores came into being, and things The little mom and pop shops couldn't compete.
Do you think that that's what it was, like these Walmarts or these Dollar Generals and things like that? Or were there other things at play that people coming and going?
No, I really think that we were a full-on community, but we still had to go through Yucca Valley and on out the valley to the things that San Bernardino held for us, or wherever. So as the population grew, more of the bigger businesses decided to go to Yucca to improve and grow. And because we all from 29 had to go through Yucca, then the smart thinking was to put the stores in Yucca, because we had to go that way anyway. So anyway, we just kind of decreased in a natural kind of way.
What is it like with the base being there?
Well, they're a total facility within themselves. They're a town within themselves.
I've heard that. Have you been on the base? I've never been on.
Not for years, I haven't. I have no connections.
Yeah. It seems that even some people may come here via the armed services. Do you know many of them that have come that you met and then maybe left and were stationed somewhere else and then they came back?
Lots.
Really? Yeah. Did they also get kind of enthralled, do you think, with the area and they just really liked it?
I think so, yeah. It was a good place. It is a good place to be.
I've heard some people talk about the people that would come and in their initial reaction, like the Marines when they know they're getting stationed here, their initial reaction is like, that's the last place on earth that you want to get stationed. But it sounds like...
And then they come back to retire.
Right. That's what it sounds like. What would be some things that you would tell someone if someone came in the old schoolhouse and they're like, wow, I've never been here before. This is my first time. I think I'm going to move here. What are some things that you might tell them about the place?
Oh, be prepared to go out of town for everything that you need right now, even a spool of thread. So if you're not prepared to kind of be isolated in that respect, don't come.
Do you find that isolation is good or bad?
For me, in retirement, it's fine. For a young family, I have not a clue.
Because they have to find schools, but I guess they have their own community.
We have good schools.
And Smith's, where you first lived, that's where the drive-in is, right? Because I haven't been there yet. I need to get out there and do that thing. But they're still open as a drive-in.
Yes.
Yeah. When did they put that up? Was that...
Oh, before my time.
Really?
That gymnasium served as just about every community function for years and years. There was a skating rink and ice cream parlor and grocery store, and there was all kinds of things there. Plus the trailer park. And
yeah.
It was a good place to grow up.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. What were some of those community events and activities? Do you have some memories of some of those things?
A square dance, yes. My dad ran the square dance, and we square danced for years in that big building. It was Gymnasium, so it held lots of people, and we danced our hearts out every Saturday night.
Wow. Did you find that some of the Marines would come and come to the events as well?
Of course, of course. In the early years, the Marines were very much a part of our community. They didn't have all the amenities out on the base that they do now.
So they came out more?
Yeah.
I am always curious, and I'm sure you don't know the answer, but I'm always curious about how many of the folks that are stationed here are living on base versus those that live outside. And there's so many, I didn't realize too, there's many civilian jobs that are on that base.
Right.
There's actually a website, I came across it totally randomly one day. I was searching for something and I came across it. So a lot of people are employed there in a civilian capacity as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think many of them stay and patronize any of the businesses in 29, or do you think they come, say, from Yucca Valley every day to work?
Some of both, I would suppose.
A little both? Yeah.
And a generation after me can answer these questions better than I.
Understood. Understood. Talk to me about your painting that you're doing. You say you take your photographs.
Yeah.
And then you do your paintings. Are those just things that you do to pass the time and keep for you? Do you go out with your, you've got this entrepreneurial bone in your body?
Very well. I don't sell myself very well.
Do you show them at
I have shown. This is where daughter Dana comes in. She has always had a business or a big wall, and so I just fill up her space. And if somebody sees something they like, she's there to say it. I'll sell it for this and so. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it works.
She's your agent.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you would want to tell people about what it was like growing up here and then staying here your whole life? I mean, obviously, you've loved it. Have you ever thought of leaving and going anywhere else?
I left for 5 years.
Did you?
I did. Went to Arkansas. Decided that it wasn't for me. And came home. Other than I've stayed pretty close. I have worked in Palm Springs, other places while I was within the jewelry industry. Mm-hmm. But I pretty much have stayed around here.
Sounds like it's a good place for you.
It is a good place for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming and talking with us today.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It never is. Do you hear that, everyone that's on my list of ladies to come and speak? You heard it here first from Marilyn. It's not as bad as she thought it would be. Thank you for saying that. Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing parts of the desert that many of us that are new here didn't know about.
And women rule.
Yeah, we do, don't we? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for listening to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast. I want you to know how much I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. If there was something that enlightened or inspired you, let me know by sharing it with me and the other listeners on the Desert Lady Diaries Facebook page. And I want to give a shout out to Barbara Harris for her generous donation. Thank you so much, Barbara. That donation will cover 3 months of podcast hosting on Liberated Syndication, or Libsyn as they're known, where I host the podcast. So thank you so much for doing that. Next week, Dana Bowden, Marilyn's daughter, talks about her experience growing up in the desert and how she makes mosaics. And you may not know this, but there is a weekly newsletter that announces each new episode. If you'd like to sign up for that, go to the website, desertladydiaries.com, and click on the weekly newsletter button. Thanks so much for listening.